The ballroom fell silent the instant Duke Caedmon Wrenford dropped to one knee, not because he was proposing, but because, at that exact same moment, the towering Duke Thayer Blackmoor stepped forward and declared with a cold smile, "Stand up, Caedmon. She's already promised to me." Every noble gasped. At the center of the glittering Regency ballroom stood Lady Vesper Ashwyn, the one woman powerful enough to make two of England's most feared dukes forget their pride. The orchestra stopped. Champagne glasses froze in trembling hands. No one dared breathe as the two men, friends since childhood, rivals in power, undefeated in politics, locked eyes like warriors moments away from drawing blood. Then Lady Vesper whispered words that stunned the entire room. "I never chose either of you." What secret was she hiding? Why would the most desired woman in the kingdom reject two men every noble woman dreamed of marrying? And which duke would risk destroying an entire noble house just to win her heart? If you love unforgettable Regency romance filled with forbidden love, ruthless dukes, shocking betrayals, and impossible choices, you're in the right place. Subscribe now, because this love story is about to turn into a war, and trust me, you won't believe who falls first. Lady Vesper Ashwyn's words hung in the air like the strike of a cathedral bell. "I never chose either of you." No one moved. The silence inside the grand ballroom became heavier than the glittering chandeliers overhead. Noble ladies clutched their fans while powerful lords exchanged uneasy glances. Everyone expected one of the dukes to laugh, to challenge the other, or to demand an explanation. Instead, both men stared only at Vesper. Duke Caedmon Wrenford slowly rose from one knee. His calm grey eyes searched her face, looking for the warmth she had always shown him during their quiet conversations beneath the palace gardens. He found none. Across from him, Duke Thayer Blackmoor folded his hands behind his back. His expression remained unreadable, but everyone close enough noticed his jaw tighten. A man like Thayer never accepted defeat, and he certainly did not accept humiliation. Queen Adelaide watched the scene from her gilded throne without speaking. Even she seemed curious to see what Lady Vesper would do next. Vesper lowered her gaze. "I believe the celebration should continue." The orchestra hesitated before nervous musicians slowly lifted their instruments again. The music returned, but the laughter never did. Every whispered conversation inside the ballroom carried only one subject. Why had Lady Vesper rejected two dukes? She slipped away before either man could stop her. The cool night air greeted her as she stepped onto the marble terrace overlooking the royal gardens. Moonlight shimmered across the fountains, and blooming white roses filled the air with their gentle fragrance. For the first time that evening, she allowed herself to breathe. None of this was supposed to happen. She had spent years avoiding exactly this moment. Not because she disliked either duke. That would have made everything easier. Caedmon possessed a kindness rarely found among powerful nobles. Servants adored him because he remembered their names. Children ran toward him instead of away. He ruled his duchy with patience instead of fear. Thayer was different. People feared him before they even met him. His victories in Parliament and on distant battlefields had earned him respect across the kingdom. Rumors claimed he never smiled and never forgave betrayal. Most believed one duke represented light while the other represented darkness. Only Vesper knew they were both far more complicated. She had seen Caedmon lose sleep over starving villages after harsh winters. She had watched Thayer secretly pay the debts of wounded soldiers without asking for recognition. Neither man was what society believed. That truth frightened her more than anything. "You escaped." The familiar voice pulled her from her thoughts. Her cousin, Lady Elowyn Fairholt, stepped onto the terrace carrying two crystal glasses filled with sparkling cider. "I wondered how long it would take before you disappeared." The storm finally passed before sunrise. The royal procession continued toward the abandoned monastery without knowing that death waited among its broken walls. Only Thayer rode in silence. He had not shown the map to anyone except Caedmon. The two dukes agreed on one thing. If panic spread through the royal party, innocent lives would be lost before they even reached the mountains. Vesper noticed the change between them. The rivalry that had filled every room since the royal ball was gone. They no longer watched each other. They watched the road. By late afternoon, the ancient monastery appeared through the mist. Its cracked towers rose above the cliffs like forgotten guardians. Empty windows stared across the valley, and vines covered the old stone walls. The Queen's advisors ordered the procession to stop. Before anyone could dismount, Thayer raised his hand. "No one enters." One of the royal officials frowned. "Your Grace, this is the scheduled resting place." "It has become something else." The official looked offended. "You have no authority to alter the Queen's plans." "I do if keeping Her Majesty alive requires it." Without waiting for permission, Thayer rode toward the entrance. Caedmon followed beside him. Vesper ignored every order to remain behind. She refused to watch others risk their lives for her while she hid. The three of them stepped through the broken gates together. The monastery was silent. Too silent. Dust covered the stone floor. Broken statues lay scattered across the courtyard. For one brief moment, Vesper wondered if they had been wrong. Then she heard it. A single click beneath her foot. Her eyes widened. "Don't move." Thayer spun toward her. "What happened?" "I stepped on something." He slowly knelt beside her. Hidden beneath loose dirt rested a narrow metal plate connected to thin wires stretching beneath the old stones. "A trap!" The words barely left his mouth before arrows burst from hidden openings in the walls. Caedmon threw himself toward Vesper, pulling her away as the mechanism released. Arrows struck pillars where she had been standing only seconds earlier. The courtyard exploded with movement. Masked attackers poured from underground passages. Steel rang against steel. Royal guards rushed through the gates as the battle spread across the monastery. Vesper grabbed a fallen sword. She was afraid. She was exhausted. But she refused to run anymore. An attacker charged toward an injured guard lying on the ground. Without thinking, she stepped between them. Their blades collided. The force nearly knocked the sword from her hands. Before the attacker could strike again, Caedmon arrived and forced him backward. "You shouldn't be here," he shouted. "I belong here as much as you." For the first time, he did not argue. They fought side by side. Across the courtyard, Thayer cut through another group of attackers before stopping suddenly. A familiar voice echoed beneath the ruined archway. "Enough!" Cassian Ravenscar walked into the open. Every sword seemed to pause. Vesper stared at him in disbelief. "You led them here?" Cassian's expression carried no pride. Only regret. "I tried to stop this." "What are you talking about?" Before he could answer, another figure emerged from the shadows. The hooded leader. Slow, confident footsteps echoed across the monastery floor. The stranger removed the hood. Vesper felt the world stop. Lord Alaric Ashwyn, her own uncle. The man everyone believed had retired from public life years earlier. "You." Her voice broke. He smiled coldly. "You were always too curious." Caedmon stepped in front of her. "What do you want?" "The Ashwyn fortune should have belonged to me." His eyes never left Vesper. "Her father discovered what I had done before he died." Vesper struggled to breathe. "My father didn't die from illness." "No?" Alaric spoke without shame. "I made certain he never exposed me." The truth shattered the last hope she had carried since childhood. Every unanswered question, every warning, every fear. It had all begun with him. Cassian slowly lowered his sword. "I served him once." His voice trembled. I believed his lies. He looked directly at Vesper. "When I learned the truth, I ran. You should have spoken sooner." "I know." Alaric laughed. Touching, he signaled his remaining men. "Kill them." The final battle erupted. The monastery shook with the sound of clashing steel. Thayer faced Alaric himself. Neither gave ground. Years of military discipline met ruthless ambition. Their swords struck again and again until Alaric stumbled near the edge of the collapsed bell tower. "You've already lost," Thayer said. Alaric looked toward Vesper one last time. "If I fall," he smiled, "so does your family name." He lunged. Thayer stepped aside. Alaric's own momentum carried him across the broken stones. The ancient floor collapsed beneath him. His scream echoed through the ruins before disappearing into the darkness below. Silence followed. The surviving attackers surrendered. Others fled into the mountains. The battle was over. Hours later, as the wounded received treatment, Cassian handed the silver pendant back to Vesper. "It belongs to your family." She accepted it quietly. "What will happen to you?" "I'll answer for my mistakes." He lowered his head. "But at least the truth will finally be known." Royal guards escorted him away. Vesper watched until he disappeared. She felt no hatred, only sadness for the years stolen from every life touched by greed. As the sun began to rise beyond the mountains, she stood overlooking the valley. The world felt different. The fear that had controlled her for years was finally gone. She no longer needed to hide. Caedmon joined her first, then Thayer. Neither spoke for several moments. Finally, Vesper turned toward them. "I spent so long believing that loving someone meant placing them in danger." She smiled through quiet tears. "I was wrong." Caedmon gently took one of her hands. "You never had to carry everything alone." Thayer looked at them both before speaking. "I fought to win your heart." His voice was steady. "But love cannot be won." He looked directly at Vesper. "It can only be freely given." For the first time since they met, there was peace between the two dukes. Not because either had surrendered, because both had changed. Vesper looked from one man to the other. She already knew where her heart belonged. She stepped toward Caedmon. Without saying a word, she placed her hand in his. His smile said everything words could not. Thayer nodded once, accepting the choice with quiet dignity. The rivalry that had threatened to divide the kingdom ended not with another duel, but with respect. Months later, as wedding bells echoed across the capital, people remembered the story differently. Some spoke of two powerful dukes who fought for one extraordinary woman. Others spoke of the conspiracy that nearly destroyed one of England's greatest noble families. But those who knew the truth remembered something else. The strongest hearts were never the ones that refused to love. They were the ones brave enough to choose love after surviving betrayal, loss, and fear. And that choice changed the kingdom forever. Vesper accepted one glass with a faint smile. Not long enough. Elwyn studied her carefully. "You've just embarrassed the two most powerful men in England." "I know. They'll both come after answers." "I know. And every noble family will try to discover why." Vesper looked toward the moonlit gardens. "I know." Her cousin sighed. "Then tell me something I don't know." Vesper's fingers tightened around the delicate glass. "I cannot marry either of them." Elwyn frowned. "Cannot or will not?" Vesper did not answer. That silence revealed more than words ever could. Far below the terrace, a black carriage rolled through the palace gates. Its arrival went unnoticed by nearly everyone attending the royal celebration. Nearly. Vesper's heartbeat quickened the instant she saw the unfamiliar crest painted upon its door. A silver hawk surrounded by twisted branches. She had hoped never to see that symbol again. Not here. Not tonight. "What is it?" Elwyn asked quietly. "Nothing." But it was not nothing. That crest belonged to someone who should never have returned to court. Someone connected to a chapter of her life she had buried years ago. Someone who knew the truth. Inside the ballroom, Caedmon stood near one of the towering windows, watching Vesper from a distance. He ignored every noble, attempting to offer comfort or advice. He knew there had been fear in her eyes. Not rejection, fear. Across the room, Thayer noticed the same thing. Without exchanging a single word, the two dukes reached the exact same conclusion. Lady Vesper was protecting someone, or hiding from someone. Neither possibility sat well with them. For the first time in years, the rivals shared the same goal: find the truth, no matter what stood in their way. Outside, clouds drifted across the moon, casting the royal gardens into darkness for only a few seconds. When the light returned, the mysterious carriage had vanished. So had the man who stepped out of it. Vesper felt the blood drain from her face. He was already inside the palace, and if he spoke before, she could stop him. Everything she had sacrificed would be destroyed. Vesper did not wait another second. She gathered the skirts of her gown and hurried through the palace corridor, her heartbeat louder than the music still echoing from the ballroom. Every passing servant bowed, but she barely noticed them. One thought consumed her. He could not speak to anyone before she found him. The palace was crowded with nobles moving between galleries, drawing rooms, and candlelit halls. It would have been easy for a stranger to disappear among them. She turned a corner and stopped. A tall gentleman stood beside one of the stained glass windows, his back facing her. His dark coat carried the silver hawk stitched across the collar. He knew she had arrived before she said a word. I wondered how long it would take. His voice was calm, almost amused. Vesper felt the warmth leave her body. "Why are you here?" He slowly turned. His face had changed with the years, but his sharp green eyes remained exactly as she remembered. Cassian Ravenscar. The name escaped her lips like a forgotten nightmare. He smiled without warmth. "It has been a long time, Lady Vesper. You should have stayed away." "I would have." His smile disappeared. "But circumstances changed." She looked around the empty corridor. "No one here knows you." "Not yet." The two simple words struck harder than any threat. Vesper stepped closer. "What do you want?" Cassian reached into the pocket of his coat. Her heart nearly stopped. She expected a weapon. Instead, he removed a small silver pendant. It rested in his palm, catching the candlelight. Vesper stared at it in horror. She knew that pendant. She had buried it years ago, or at least she believed she had. "Impossible," she whispered. "I thought so too. Where did you find it?" "You already know." She did. Someone had searched a place no one else should have known existed. Someone had been watching. Cassian closed his hand around the pendant. "The past has become expensive. You came to blackmail me. I came to survive." She searched his face for deception but found only exhaustion. His clothes were elegant, yet worn. There was a healing cut above his brow. He looked like a man who had spent months running from something. "Who's after you?" she asked. He gave a quiet laugh. "The same people who will soon be after you." Before she could question him further, footsteps echoed through the corridor. Caedmon! He appeared at the far end, stopping the instant he noticed them together. Relief crossed his face when he saw Vesper unharmed. Then his eyes settled on Cassian. "Am I interrupting?" His voice remained polite. His eyes did not. Cassian offered a slight bow. "I believe this conversation belongs to Lady Vesper." Caedmon stepped forward anyway. "If she wishes privacy, she'll tell me herself." For a brief moment, the two men simply stared at each other. Neither looked away. Vesper understood exactly what was happening. Caedmon was measuring the stranger. Cassian was doing the same. Neither trusted the other. "We're finished," Vesper said quickly. Cassian looked at her one last time. "I'll be staying in the capital." His words carried a hidden meaning only she understood. "You have 3 days." Then he walked away without looking back. Caedmon watched until the stranger disappeared beyond the marble staircase. Who was he? No one important. He turned toward her. "You've never lied well." She lowered her eyes. "I don't wish to discuss him." "You looked frightened." I was surprised. Those aren't the same thing. She wanted to tell him everything. She almost did. But if Caedmon learned the truth, he would become part of it. She could not allow that. "I need some time alone." She walked past him before he could ask another question. Caedmon remained standing in the corridor long after she disappeared. He had spent years studying people. He knew grief. He knew guilt. Tonight he had seen both in Vesper's eyes. Elsewhere inside the palace, Duke Thayer Blackmoor stood in the royal library. A palace guard approached and bowed deeply. "My lord, what is it?" "We've identified the gentleman who arrived in the black carriage." Thayer looked up from the map spread across the table. "And? No records exist under the name he provided." Thayer slowly rolled the map closed. "So he entered the royal palace under a false identity." "Yes, your grace." "Who admitted him?" "We don't know." Thayer's expression hardened. Someone had managed to bypass royal security during the largest gathering of the season. That was no accident. He dismissed the guard and walked toward the window overlooking the palace grounds. His instincts had kept him alive through wars and political conspiracies. Those same instincts were warning him now. The stranger had not come for the queen. He had come for Lady Vesper. Back in her chamber, Vesper locked the door behind her. Only then did she allow herself to tremble. She opened the small wooden chest hidden beneath her dressing table. Inside rested a faded velvet ribbon. Nothing else. Years ago, something precious had been hidden beside it. The silver pendant. She touched the empty space where it had once rested. Someone had found it, which meant someone had also discovered the place connected to her greatest secret. A quiet knock interrupted her thoughts. Lady Vesper? It was Elowyn. Vesper quickly closed the chest. You may enter. Her cousin stepped inside, concern filling her face. The Queen requests your presence. Now? Immediately. Vesper frowned. Did she say why? No. Moments later, she entered the Queen's private sitting room. Only 3 people stood inside. Queen Adelaide, Duke Caedmon, Duke Thayer. The Queen motioned for Vesper to come closer. I have made a decision. Vesper's stomach tightened. The kingdom has watched both dukes pursue you for months. Their rivalry is becoming dangerous. Neither duke spoke. The Queen continued. To end the growing division among the nobility, I am placing this matter under royal authority. Vesper's pulse quickened. What do you mean, Your Majesty? You will spend the coming weeks under royal supervision. She looked confused. The Queen's next words changed everything. You will accompany both Duke Caedmon Wrenford and Duke Thayer Blackmoor on the Crown's diplomatic progress through the northern duchies. Silence filled the room. Vesper could scarcely breathe. Travel with both men? For weeks? While Cassian remained somewhere in the capital holding the one secret capable of destroying her life, she wanted to refuse. Every instinct screamed that she must stay. But refusing a direct royal command was impossible. She slowly bowed her head. As Your Majesty wishes. The Queen smiled, believing she had solved a political problem. She had no idea she had created something far worse. As Vesper left the chamber, hidden in the shadows beyond the doorway, a pair of unseen eyes watched her every step. A quiet voice whispered into the darkness. She accepted. Another voice answered. Good. She'll lead us exactly where we need to go. Neither Vesper nor the 2 dukes realized that the journey ordered by the Queen was never meant to bring peace. It had already become a carefully prepared trap. Vesper left the Queen's chamber feeling as though the palace walls were closing around her. The royal journey would begin in 2 days. 2 days before she was expected to travel across the northern duchies with the very men she had tried so hard to keep at a distance. She walked through the silent corridor, trying to steady her breathing. If she left the capital, Cassian would remain behind with the pendant. If she stayed, she would be disobeying the Queen. Neither choice offered safety. She had never felt so trapped. The following morning, the palace came alive. Before sunrise, servants hurried through the halls carrying trunks, maps, and travel supplies. Royal guards inspected weapons, while stable hands prepared horses for the long journey. Everyone treated the trip like another noble tradition. Only Vesper knew it felt like the beginning of something much darker. She entered the palace library hoping to study the northern routes. If she understood where they would stop, perhaps she could find a way to slip away long enough to return to the capital. Instead, she found Duke Thayer already there. Several maps covered the massive oak table before him. Without looking up, he spoke. You don't sleep much. She stopped. You noticed? I notice everything. His voice remained calm, almost cold. You've been walking the palace after midnight for 3 nights. She hadn't realized anyone had seen her. You've been watching me? I've been protecting the palace. His eyes finally met hers. You simply happened to keep appearing. She wanted to deny it. Instead, she moved closer to the table. The map showed every village, forest, and river between the capital and the northern border. You know these lands well, she said. I fought there. His answer was short. There are places on this road where an army can disappear without leaving tracks. Vesper looked at the narrow mountain pass marked in dark ink. Is it dangerous? Only if someone wants it to be. Something in his tone unsettled her. He wasn't trying to frighten her. He was preparing her. You think someone may attack? I think someone already has. She looked at him in confusion. The stranger. Thayer folded the map. He didn't come to the palace by chance. Her heartbeat quickened. You know about him? I know enough. What do you know? That he came for you. Silence settled between them. She realized hiding the truth was becoming impossible. Before she could answer, footsteps echoed through the library. Caedmon entered carrying several journals beneath his arm. His expression softened when he saw Vesper. I've been looking everywhere for you. Thayer stepped aside without a word. Caedmon placed the journals on the table. These belong to my grandfather. Vesper looked at the worn leather covers, He traveled through every northern duchy. He recorded every village, every estate, every family. He opened one carefully. If we're traveling together, I thought they might help you understand the people we'll meet. She smiled before she could stop herself. It was such a thoughtful gesture. No politics, no expectations, just kindness. Thayer quietly observed the exchange. He said nothing. Yet something shifted behind his steady eyes. For the first time, he understood why Vesper trusted Caedmon. Not because he was powerful, because he made people feel safe. Later that afternoon, the three of them rode through the royal training grounds to prepare for the journey. The Queen insisted every member of the diplomatic party be comfortable on horseback over long distances. Vesper had ridden since childhood, but months had passed since her last ride. As her horse approached a wooden bridge crossing a narrow stream, it suddenly reared. The frightened animal threw its head violently. Vesper lost her balance. Before she could fall, a strong hand caught her arm. Caedmon. He steadied both horses with surprising ease. Easy, he whispered to the frightened animal. Within moments, the horse calmed. You aren't hurt? He asked. I'm fine. But another voice interrupted. No, Thayer had already dismounted. He crouched beside the bridge, studying the ground. What is it? Caedmon asked. Thayer held up a small iron object, a sharpened hunting spike. Someone had hidden it beneath loose straw, exactly where Vesper's horse had stepped. The silence that followed felt colder than winter. That wasn't an accident, Thayer said. Caedmon's face hardened. Someone wanted her throne. Thayer looked toward the nearby trees. They're probably still watching. Royal guards immediately searched the area. They found nothing. No footprints. No abandoned equipment. No witness. Only broken branches leading into the forest before disappearing completely. That evening, the palace became tense. The attempted attack spread through every hallway. Some blamed careless stable workers. Others whispered about assassination. Very few believed the truth. Someone had deliberately targeted Lady Vesper. Caedmon stood outside her chamber later that night. I've spoken with the captain of the guard. And? You'll have protection at all times. I don't need guards following me everywhere. You do now. She looked away. I never wanted either of you dragged into this. His expression softened. That decision may no longer be yours. After he left, Vesper remained standing by the window. She had spent years believing distance could protect the people around her. Now danger had found them anyway. For the first time, she admitted something she had refused to face. Running had never ended the threat. It had only delayed it. Across the palace, hidden behind a secret passage inside the West Tower, Cassian watched royal guards double their patrols below. A shadow stepped beside him. They're becoming cautious. Cassian never looked away from the window. They should have been cautious years ago. The shadow smiled. The girl is beginning to trust the dukes. Good. And if they protect her? Cassian's face darkened. They'll die with her. Far below, Vesper looked toward the moonlit courtyard, unaware that unseen eyes followed her every movement. The journey north had not even begun, yet the hunt for her life was already closing in. The royal procession departed at dawn beneath a sky covered with heavy grey clouds. Dozens of mounted guards surrounded the Queen's diplomatic party as elegant carriages rolled through the palace gates. Nobles waved from balconies, believing they were witnessing another peaceful royal tour. Vesper sat quietly inside the lead carriage. Across from her sat Duke Caedmon. Beside him sat Duke Thayer. The silence between the three of them lasted for miles. Outside, the capital slowly disappeared behind rolling hills and endless fields. The farther they traveled, the lighter the weight of the city became. Yet the fear inside Vesper only grew. Someone had already tried to harm her before they even left the palace. What would happen once they reached isolated roads with no walls to protect them? By noon, the procession entered the ancient Ashmere forest. Towering oaks blocked much of the sunlight, leaving patches of darkness across the narrow road. The guards instinctively tightened their formation. Thayer lifted the carriage curtain and studied the trees. They're too quiet. Caedmon noticed it as well. There aren't any birds. Even Vesper realized something was wrong. The forest felt empty, almost as though every living creature had fled. Without warning, An arrow struck the side of the carriage. Another flew past the driver's head. Then came a rain of arrows from both sides of the road. "Horses down!" someone shouted. The royal guards immediately drew their swords. The peaceful procession exploded into chaos. The carriage lurched violently as frightened horses reared. Vesper nearly lost her balance before Caedmon caught her hand. "Stay behind us." Before she could protest, both dukes pushed open the carriage door. Steel flashed beneath the dark trees. Masked riders burst from the forest. They weren't ordinary bandits. They attacked with military precision. One rider charged directly toward Vesper. Thayer intercepted him before he reached the carriage. The clash of steel echoed through the forest. His sword moved with terrifying speed. Within seconds, the attacker lay unconscious on the ground. More riders appeared. Too many. Caedmon fought beside the royal guards, refusing to retreat even as enemies surrounded him. Vesper watched in disbelief. She had always known both men were skilled. She had never imagined they were this fearless. One masked attacker slipped past the fighting and sprinted toward the carriage. Vesper reached beneath the seat and pulled free the small dagger she secretly carried. Her father had taught her years ago that courage was not the absence of fear. It was moving despite it. The attacker grabbed her arm. She reacted without thinking. The dagger sliced across his wrist. He cried out in pain and stumbled backward. Before he recovered, Caedmon knocked him to the ground. "You shouldn't have had to do that. I wasn't waiting to be rescued." Their eyes met for only a second. For the first time, Caedmon saw not only kindness inside Vesper, he saw strength. The attack ended almost as suddenly as it had begun. The surviving riders disappeared into the forest before the guards could pursue them. Only silence remained. Several soldiers were wounded. One carriage had overturned. Broken arrows covered the muddy road. Thayer walked among the fallen attackers. Every single one had escaped, except one. The man Vesper had injured remained alive. The guards tied his hands and brought him before the two dukes. Thayer removed the prisoner's mask. No one recognized him. "Who sent you?" Thayer demanded. The prisoner laughed. "You already know. I asked a question. You'll get no answers." Thayer's patience vanished. He stepped closer. "If your employer values your life, perhaps I won't." The man only smiled. Then, before anyone could stop him, he bit down hard. Foam gathered at the corners of his mouth. Seconds later, he collapsed. Dead. Poison. He had chosen death over speaking. Even Thayer stood motionless. Whoever commanded these assassins inspired absolute loyalty, or absolute fear. The procession reached a nearby hunting lodge before sunset. The Queen's advisors insisted everyone remain there until reinforcements arrived. That night, heavy rain battered the windows, while thunder rolled across the mountains. No one slept. Vesper stood alone beneath the covered balcony, listening to the storm. "I've been looking for you." She turned. Caedmon approached quietly. "You should be inside." "So should you." Neither moved. For several moments, they simply watched the rain. Finally, Caedmon spoke. "I almost lost you today." She lowered her eyes. "You barely know me." He smiled sadly. "I know enough." She looked at him. "You know the woman everyone believes I am." "No." His voice was gentle. "I know the woman who carries burdens she refuses to share." Tears threatened to appear. She quickly looked away. "If you knew the truth, I'd still be standing here." Her heart ached. No one had ever spoken to her that way. No conditions. No demands. Only acceptance. Without realizing it, she stepped closer. "So many people have already been hurt because of me. You didn't cause today. I may have." His expression changed. "What do you mean?" She wanted to tell him everything. Every hidden memory. Every mistake. Every reason she had rejected both dukes. Her lips parted. Then she stopped. If she confessed now, she could place him in even greater danger. "I'm sorry." She stepped back. "I can't." Pain crossed Caedmon's face, but he nodded. "I'll wait." He left her standing alone with the rain. From the opposite end of the balcony, Thayer had witnessed everything. He had heard only the final words, but they were enough. He quietly turned away before either of them noticed him. Something inside him shifted. For years he believed love was another weakness powerful men could not afford. Watching Vesper refuse happiness to protect others shattered that belief. Later that night, Thayer entered the room where the dead assassin's belongings had been gathered. Most of it was ordinary: a knife, coins, travel supplies. Then he found something hidden inside the man's boot. A folded piece of cloth, not a letter, a map. One location had been marked with fresh black ink: an abandoned monastery high in the northern mountains. The exact place where the royal procession was scheduled to stop in 3 days. Thayer's breathing slowed. This attack had never been meant to kill everyone on the road. It had only been the beginning. Someone wanted the royal party to keep moving. Someone wanted them to reach that monastery. Outside, lightning split the night sky. Deep within the forest overlooking the hunting lodge, dozens of shadowed riders gathered silently around a hooded figure. "The first attack failed," one of them said. The hooded figure remained calm. It was never supposed to succeed. "And Lady Vesper? She is exactly where we need her." The figure slowly looked toward the distant lights of the lodge. "Prepare the monastery. This time, none of the dukes will leave alive." The storm finally passed before sunrise. The royal procession continued toward the abandoned monastery without knowing that death waited among its broken walls. Only Thayer rode in silence. He had not shown the map to anyone except Caedmon. The two dukes agreed on one thing: if panic spread through the royal party, innocent lives would be lost before they even reached the mountains. Vesper noticed the change between them. The rivalry that had filled every room since the royal ball was gone. They no longer watched each other. They watched the road. By late afternoon, the ancient monastery appeared through the mist. Its cracked towers rose above the cliffs like forgotten guardians. Empty windows stared across the valley, and vines covered the old stone walls. The Queen's advisors ordered the procession to stop. Before anyone could dismount, Thayer raised his hand. "No one enters." One of the royal officials frowned. "Your Grace, this is the scheduled resting place. It has become something else." The official looked offended. "You have no authority to alter the Queen's plans." "I do if keeping Her Majesty alive requires it." Without waiting for permission, Thayer rode toward the entrance. Caedmon followed beside him. Vesper ignored every order to remain behind. She refused to watch others risk their lives for her while she hid. The three of them stepped through the broken gates together. The monastery was silent. Too silent. Dust covered the stone floor. Broken statues lay scattered across the courtyard. For one brief moment, Vesper wondered if they had been wrong. Then she heard it. A single click beneath her foot. Her eyes widened. "Don't move." Thayer spun toward her. "What happened?" "I stepped on something." He slowly knelt beside her. Hidden beneath loose dirt rested a narrow metal plate connected to thin wires stretching beneath the old stones. "A trap!" The words barely left his mouth before arrows burst from hidden openings in the walls. Caedmon threw himself toward Vesper, pulling her away as the mechanism released. Arrows struck pillars where she had been standing only seconds earlier. The courtyard exploded with movement. Masked attackers poured from underground passages. Steel rang against steel. Royal guards rushed through the gates as the battle spread across the monastery. Vesper grabbed a fallen sword. She was afraid. She was exhausted, but she refused to run anymore. An attacker charged toward an injured guard lying on the ground. Without thinking, she stepped between them. Their blades collided. The force nearly knocked the sword from her hands. Before the attacker could strike again, Caedmon arrived and forced him backward. "You shouldn't be here," he shouted. "I belong here as much as you." For the first time, he did not argue. They fought side by side. Across the courtyard, Thayer cut through another group of attackers before stopping suddenly. A familiar voice echoed beneath the ruined archway. "Enough!" Cassian Ravenscar walked into the open. Every sword seemed to pause. Vesper stared at him in disbelief. "You led them here?" Cassian's expression carried no pride, only regret. "I tried to stop this." "What are you talking about?" Before he could answer, another figure emerged from the shadows. The hooded leader. Slow, confident footsteps echoed across the monastery floor. The stranger removed the hood. Vesper felt the world stop. Lord Alaric Ashwyn. Her own uncle, the man everyone believed had retired from public life years earlier. You, her voice broke. He smiled coldly. You were always too curious. Caedmon stepped in front of her. What do you want? The Ashwyn fortune should have belonged to me. His eyes never left Vesper. Her father discovered what I had done before he died. Vesper struggled to breathe. My father didn't die from illness. No, Alaric spoke without shame. I made certain he never exposed me. The truth shattered the last hope she had carried since childhood. Every unanswered question, every warning, every fear, it had all begun with him. Cassian slowly lowered his sword. I served him once. His voice trembled. I believed his lies. He looked directly at Vesper. When I learned the truth, I ran. You should have spoken sooner. I know. Alaric laughed. Touching, he signaled his remaining men. Kill them! The final battle erupted. The monastery shook with the sound of clashing steel. Thayer faced Alaric himself. Neither gave ground. Years of military discipline met ruthless ambition. Their swords struck again and again, until Alaric stumbled near the edge of the collapsed bell tower. You've already lost, Thayer said. Alaric looked toward Vesper one last time. If I fall, he smiled. So does your family name. He lunged. Thayer stepped aside. Alaric's own momentum carried him across the broken stones. The ancient floor collapsed beneath him. His scream echoed through the ruins before disappearing into the darkness below. Silence followed. The surviving attackers surrendered. Others fled into the mountains. The battle was over. Hours later, as the wounded received treatment, Cassian handed the silver pendant back to Vesper. It belongs to your family. She accepted it, quietly. What will happen to you? I'll answer for my mistakes. He lowered his head. But at least the truth will finally be known. Royal guards escorted him away. Vesper watched until he disappeared. She felt no hatred, only sadness for the years stolen from every life touched by greed. As the sun began to rise beyond the mountains, she stood overlooking the valley. The world felt different. The fear that had controlled her for years was finally gone. She no longer needed to hide. Caedmon joined her first, then Thayer. Neither spoke for several moments. Finally, Vesper turned toward them. I spent so long believing that loving someone meant placing them in danger. She smiled through quiet tears. I was wrong. Caedmon gently took one of her hands. You never had to carry everything alone. Thayer looked at them both before speaking. I fought to win your heart. His voice was steady. But love cannot be won. He looked directly at Vesper. It can only be freely given. For the first time since they met, there was peace between the two dukes. Not because either had surrendered, because both had changed. Vesper looked from one man to the other. She already knew where her heart belonged. She stepped toward Caedmon. Without saying a word, she placed her hand in his. His smile said everything words could not. Thayer nodded once, accepting the choice with quiet dignity. The rivalry that had threatened to divide the kingdom ended not with another duel, but with respect. Months later, as wedding bells echoed across the capital, people remembered the story differently. Some spoke of two powerful dukes who fought for one extraordinary woman. Others spoke of the conspiracy that nearly destroyed one of England's greatest noble families. But those who knew the truth remembered something else. The strongest hearts were never the ones that refused to love. They were the ones brave enough to choose love after surviving betrayal, loss, and fear. And that choice changed the kingdom forever. Spring arrived as though the kingdom itself had decided to begin again. The scars left by the battle at the monastery remained, but they no longer carried only pain. They had become reminders of the courage that had saved countless lives. Lord Alaric's crimes were revealed before the entire royal council. Every hidden account, every stolen estate, and every family he had threatened was finally brought into the light. His name was removed from the Ashwyn family records, and the lands he had claimed through deception were returned to their rightful owners. For Lady Vesper Ashwyn, justice brought peace, but it could never return the years she had lost believing her father had simply abandoned her through illness. She often visited his resting place, not with tears alone, but with gratitude that the truth had finally found its way home. One quiet morning, she stood before his grave, surrounded by blooming white roses. "I was afraid for so long," she whispered. A gentle breeze stirred the flowers around her. "I thought protecting everyone meant carrying every burden by myself." She rested the silver pendant upon the stone for a moment, before placing it around her own neck. "I understand now. Strength was never meant to be lonely." When she turned away from the grave, Caedmon was waiting beneath an old oak tree. He had kept his distance, allowing her the time she needed. As she walked toward him, neither hurried. There was no fear between them anymore. No secrets. No walls. Only trust. "You always know where to find me," she said with a small smile. "I only follow my heart." She laughed softly. "And where has it led you today?" "To the woman I intend to spend the rest of my life beside." Her eyes filled with quiet emotion. Months earlier, those words would have terrified her. Now they filled her with peace. She reached for his hand. "I used to believe love asked us to choose between happiness and sacrifice. And now? Now I know real love gives us the strength to carry both." Caedmon gently brushed a loose strand of hair from her face. "You've changed. So have you. I thought loving you meant convincing you." He smiled. "It only meant waiting until you could choose freely." She rose onto her toes and kissed him beneath the morning sunlight. It was not a kiss born from desperation or fear. It was calm, certain. Everything they had survived had led them to that single moment. Across the palace gardens, Duke Thayer Blackmoor watched from a respectful distance. He felt no bitterness, only quiet acceptance. For the first time in many years, the weight he carried had lifted. He understood that losing the woman he loved did not make his life empty. It simply meant his path was different. As he turned to leave, Queen Adelaide approached him. "You seem lighter." "I finally stopped fighting a battle I was never meant to win." The Queen smiled knowingly. "The kingdom still needs good men." "It has them. And what of your own future?" Thayer looked toward the distant northern hills. "There are villages still rebuilding after the attacks. There are soldiers who deserve better lives than war. There is enough work to fill a lifetime." The Queen nodded with quiet pride. "Then perhaps your greatest victory still lies ahead." Weeks later, the capital gathered once more inside the royal cathedral. This time, the silence carried joy instead of uncertainty. Sunlight poured through colorful stained glass as noble families filled every seat. Musicians played softly while flower petals covered the long aisle. Vesper walked forward with steady steps. She wore no expression of fear, only happiness. At the altar stood Caedmon, unable to hide the smile that spread across his face the moment he saw her. When they joined hands, the priest began the ceremony. The vows they exchanged were simple. Promises of honesty, promises of patience, promises to remain beside one another when life became difficult again, because both of them knew happiness was never guaranteed. It was something built every single day. When the ceremony ended, the cathedral erupted with applause. Outside, the streets filled with ordinary people celebrating alongside nobles. Children laughed. Church bells echoed across the capital. Even those who had once argued over which duke deserved, Lady Vesper now celebrated together. Old divisions quietly disappeared. That evening, the newly married couple escaped the crowded celebration and walked through the palace gardens where everything had begun. The fountains shimmered beneath the stars. White roses bloomed exactly as they had on the night Vesper rejected both dukes. She smiled at the memory. "If someone had told me that night, this was how our story would end, I wouldn't have believed them either," Caedmon admitted. She leaned against him. "Our story didn't end." "No?" He looked toward the moonlit sky. It finally began. In the distance, hoofbeats echoed beyond the palace gates. A royal messenger arrived carrying urgent news from the northern frontier. Thayer accepted the sealed report, his expression becoming thoughtful as he read it. One sentence caught his attention. Several witnesses claimed to have seen a man wearing the silver hawk crest escaping across the border. Cassian had surrendered. Alaric was gone. Yet someone connected to the old conspiracy had survived. Thayer quietly folded the report. He did not wish to disturb the joy of the evening. There would be time for difficult choices tomorrow. Tonight belonged to hope. As music drifted through the gardens, Vesper rested her head against Caedmon's shoulder. The darkness that had once ruled her life no longer held power over her heart. She had faced betrayal and survived. She had faced fear and overcome it. She had discovered that love was never about choosing the strongest man. It was about choosing the one who made her strongest version of herself. Together they walked deeper into the gardens with their hands intertwined, leaving behind the shadows of yesterday and stepping toward a future they would face side by side, whatever it might bring.